The origin of the track was the land was originally owned by the Cranmer and we then became Simpson family. But in 1922, which is relevant here, the News of the World newspaper bought it, laid out the track in order to promote British athletics. But of course, it also helped to sell the newspapers. If you had an exclusive with someone who was a potential, Olympic champion and then became an Olympic champion, you knew that it was sort of the real McCoy. And News of the World kept it until 1939 when it was sold to Mitcham Council. Athletes, good athletes, came from quite a distance just to use these facilities. Dorothy Tyler competed certainly in the 1936 Olympics, and she had a silver in 36. And another athletic event, she broke the world record for the high jump, and it stayed until 1948.
My father was an athlete who belonged to the Mitcham Club from probably the late 1920s and through the 1930s. He was a runner and he was particularly good at sprinting. That was where he excelled. And although I haven't got the details of the date, I know he held the championship for the 220-yard sprint for, I think, around 20 years. It was all amateur when he was running, and you weren't paid money, but apart from medals and cups, you could win a prize. So I have got quite a few boxes of spoons, silver spoons. I've got an Art Deco coffee set, which is rather nice and which we were never allowed to touch. I've got a clock in the hall, which we called a grandmother clock, because it wasn't as big as a grandfather clock, which he actually had to bring home. It was presented to him, he had to carry it home for wherever the venue was when he was still young and living at home. So yes, that was always a story we were told of his father wondering where he was and going out and hearing the clanging coming down the road, which was him carrying this clock.
I was a sprinter and a long jumper, but mainly a sprinter. Well, I finished up there probably about 1955, 56, so work it back. I do remember the first time I was at the track with my friend, and we decided that we were going to try out a bit of running. So we wandered off down to the track and started running around and jumping in the long jump pit. And this man came up and said, "What are you doing here?" He was the groundsman. And we said, "Oh, we're just trying things out." He said, "You're not supposed to be here. And even if you were here, normal circumstances, it would cost you sixpence." So we had to join the following week and we had to pay our sixpence, and we belonged to Mitcham Athletic Club. We didn't have starting blocks. We had a little trowel and we had to dig the hole to put our feet into before you started the sprint. And on the odd occasion, someone used to walk behind you when you were bent down, ready to start this race. And if your knickers showed underneath your shorts, you could be disqualified. I don't think they disqualified the whole lot of us. But anyway, that's one of the things I do remember.
Mitcham Athletic Club was always a well-known club when I was in the 50s with the 4-minute milers training here. I used to play korfball, the Dutch form of netball, and I used to play on the site here. It's a netball divided into three with 6 men and 6 women on each side, and you had to stop them passing to each other and then eventually throwing it into the net. We were involved with playing it from very early on, post-war. One year we used to go over to Holland, Hengelo, which was near the German border, and then next year they used to come over to us, staying in our homes before package holidays. So Mitcham and the athletic track was involved with that.
Athletics track was literally 200 yards away from the school, and we used to use this for our school sports. We did it for the cub sports, so it was a focal point. I think I held the record for the long jump here when I was 11. I jumped 4 metres, and I had the cup for one day. I had to give it back. Brian Hewson was a Mitcham athlete. He went to the grammar school here, but he was a sort of golden boy of athletics at that time. I think he was the third man to beat the 4-minute mile in England. So, and he won the European Games The one memory I have of him is I went to an old boys reunion at Merton Town Hall, and I think it was 1986. I said, I'm running in the marathon tomorrow. Would you like to sponsor me? He said, no. Well, it wasn't my hero anymore. Bless his soul. But he was a credit to the school.
After all these years, a very, very long time, it's great to be able to see the running track again. Great.
It is interesting now to see it and to see it put back as it was. And to imagine Dad, just as a young lad really, running round it. It's quite fascinating.